when Eve is confronted by the serpent, the Bible says Adam was there and did nothing.
When I think about Ronda Rousey, like
No,
I feel like
you're wrong.
I feel like she can take all three of us.
Why does it particularly target father? Can mothers provoke their kids' anger? For sure. But it's especially destructive when fathers do it.
Yeah.
Women can't lead companies, or women can't make decisions, or women can't vote. Like that's the most asinine thing I've ever I go, how do you even get there?
I think men's power is used best for the sake of justice, for the sake of the vulnerable, for the sake of those who might be most overlooked.
Yo, what's going on? We are back with another episode of the Unsilent Church podcast. And we got the core up in the building this morning. Yo, we're talking about a really, really important topic today. We are talking about masculinity. Remember that Peter Pan thing? I'm a real boy. Is that Peter Pan?
Or is that Pinocchio?
Oh, Pinocchio. I'm sorry.
Y'all forgive Pastor John.
Forgive me. But yeah, listen, masculinity, man. What is a man? There's a lot of talk about that. I feel like, through the different, over the years, there's been almost, there was books about what manhood is, biblical manhood.
Y'all remember men's fraternity? Did y'all hear about
that situation? I mean,
You
conferences, man camps, all sorts of different things. It seems like there's a slight resurgence of this kind of conversation that's coming up, particularly in the church. I know a lot of times they talk about how men are not necessarily in the church, it's more so women that are in the church. And if you want to, get the family, you got to get the man and this, that, and the fourth. And so I wonder if maybe that's some of the different, reasons why this conversation about manhood and masculinity and all that is coming up. But I'd love to hear y'all thoughts as we think about this conversation about masculinity. By the way, there's different adjectives for masculinity. You got toxic masculinity conversation, you got all sorts of different masculinity. So I don't know. V, what you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a topic that has sort of ebbed and flowed throughout the decades.
It's been on a cycle.
Ways. Yeah, it's been a cycle. And I'd say one of the reasons I think we're interested in talking about it is it does feel like there's more conversation around what it means to be a man because of certain, I think, versions of manhood that appear to be more prominent, and more prominent by that I mean more aggressive, if I can put it that way.
Yeah,
it's exemplified by guys like Andrew Tate, or even to some degree like a Nick Fuentes. That's a sort of a different version of it for sure. But basically, those who are familiar with those type of men, I mean, it's a version of manhood that essentially says we've been held down for too long. That being a man involves domination, particularly over women. That we should be more in control, more assertive. There's sort of Christian versions of that where it is a Christian nationalist expression of manhood that would sort of add that men should be really the ones leading everything. There's even in some circles that, to be clear, aren't I wouldn't say they're. Well, let's put it this way: they're very vocal. Let's put it that way. Vocal. I wouldn't suggest that they're close to pulling this off, but the fact that this in conversation is notable. Circles where they're arguing that men should be the ones who vote for the household, that women should be allowed to vote. And so you can see sort of how that's
taking away the voting for
the rights to vote for women.
For women.
But that's even a conversation
that's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I would say
crazy.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I mean, if you really look at sort of the numbers, a lot of that is sort of more social media oriented. I don't think if you did a polling, I don't think they're close to pulling that off constitutionally. Sure. But I think it's interesting that that conversation is out there and is even being debated, right? And again, I'm using that as a small example of sort of the bigger question, the bigger thing that we're talking about here, which is this sort of version of manhood that you might argue is a response to previous versions of manhood. It's a version of manhood that says we have been held down and we should be in control. And then as a Christian version of it is because God says that we should dominate and women's job is really to be subordinate, obedient. Essentially they're lesser than us, and we are meant to be like this.
For the record, the Bible just doesn't say that. So just to insert that
Thank
before
you. Fair.
anyone takes a clip out of
see where we're going with
out
this.
Of context.
Bible does not say that.
Let me just insert and just be like, that is not what the Bible says.
Yeah.
And those who have let nationalism influence their Christian viewpoint or worldview, are just kind of deceived. So.
Yeah, so let me just sort of throw out a couple of different versions of manhood in terms of what you guys are aware of. That I would argue these are bad versions of it. So there's what's called the man camp version of it.
Man camp.
So being a man means you. It sort of revolves around like drinking beer, throwing axes in the wood. It is a very sort of. I mean, I want to say stereotypical, but it has a sense of like aggressiveness, domination, toughness. Sort of outdoorsy,
enduring, perseverance, maybe.
Exactly, right. So there's that sort of version of a man, almost like the warrior, right? You're a man to the degree in which you're a successful warrior and can prove that in terms of and that's probably the better way. It's a warrior man. You're a successessul warrior. You can prove that by how you dominate.
You go hunt your food, like almost like the hunter.
Well, yeah, you can survive in the wild. Like you do, you're really good at like the sort of aggressive sports. And it's a way of almost ranking, man. How good are you at these things? Right?
I would want to. I learned this in seminary. When presenting another person's argument, trying to present it in a way that sort of honors kind of their perspective.
Gotta be charitable.
And so I even think in what they're trying to achieve is looking back throughout history and saying like, oh, there was a time where that was just what men had to do.
Like in the hunter gathering.
Yeah. Like in the season society. Where we didn't have all this technology, we didn't have industrialization, you had to go make your own food. Like boys had to be raised and even the rite of passage of like, you have to go hunt, you have to go kill this animal. You have to learn how to like take care of the family, feed the family.
In Kenya, one of my Kenyan dudes was telling me that he had to like, get it popping with a lion.
Hunt lions, yes.
To actually, and like after you successfully conquered that, then that's part of being a man.
Yeah. So I think that's the. So
there's something there in terms of the.
So when you come into like these industrialized nations, and it's just so different. I think what they were trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, is say, for a lot of history before modernization, industrialization, manhood looked a certain kind of way. Mm-hmm. You had to be able to do certain things. You had to physically move things and protect and provide. And again, like some of that is like a revisionist history because most of these men who say that weren't there. They don't really know what happened. They don't really know what it took to do a lot of these things and how much more involvement there was from the women in the tribe and like everybody's role. So like
you're right. There's an echo of something that was part of being a man, but it's almost like this weird like
extremism.
Pop culture version of it because it sort of they tie in like we drink American beer, right? We ride motorcycles, and these like what's that? It's almost sort of like it heavies on the toughness and the sort of aggressiveness, and less on which I do think, and we'll get into this. I think. That version of man that before modernization was really more about responsibility, provision, which I do think is tied something to
protection.
And protection.
Yeah.
Which I mean, because we do have strength for sure, but it's less about the strength and the aggressiveness and more about the sense of caring and responsibility towards those around you, right? Mm-hmm. So let's call it the man's man, the warrior man. Another version I like to describe as let's call him like the lovable doofus. I think of like. Everybody Loves Raymond, a popular sitcom.
Everyone Loves Raymond.
The King of Queens is another guy like this, where like it's this guy who like, it's almost like this version of manhood. And I think I would say the man's man was almost like a response against that kind of guy. Where if you remember some of these kind of sitcoms, he's this person who's almost like a big dumb kid, right? He comes home, whines a lot, comes home, hard day at work, sits in front of the TV with a bag of chips. Right, he just wants to veg out.
Al Bundy,
yeah, and just sort of like you get the sense of like everyone is sort of like like dumb dad. You get the sense of
passive,
super passive. Like he's easily taken advantage of by like his mother and his mother-in-law and his wife, his
right?
kids,
and he's just sort of like he's there to sort of laugh at. And
Homer Simpson,
Homer Simpson is a good example of this, right? So this sort of like lovable doofus, right?
Yeah, you like him, but when you're like you like him, but you don't want to be him.
Yeah,
correct.
And absolutely. You can see like even in that description, like I'm like, yeah, I never want to be a dad like that. I grew up and I remember Married with Children. I think that was the name of the episode.
Yeah,
name
with
of the show.
Bundy. Yep.
Yeah, you sit on the couch, put your hands in your pants, give me my beer. Kids doing whatever, wife doing whatever. It's just like
not present, not engaged.
Exactly, just completely disengaged, detached. Like, and you just go like, that is not, one, the way my life looks. Two, that's not the way I want my life to look. And I could see guys who are like, oh, I grew up watching shows like this. It was never like that was the model of man that I wanted to be, right? And the guys that you did see tended to be more like, again, athletes, and they were idolized in a lot of cases. I mean, I think you get this in the unhealthy versions where the groupies, because of football players and basketball players, and the ones who could really showcase their talent, and they had big personalities, and they
that's
had
the third
ultimate confidence.
That's the third one I would say. Is like I call him the dude, right? Kind of like a
big man on campus.
Big man on campus.
That guy.
Yeah, it's that guy. He's got the good kicks. He's got the
He's
good
him.
clothes. He's him, right? He gets he gets the girls. He just sort of. Andrew Tate is also another version. The jock, right? It's sort of another version. And that like you're a man. So yeah, like if you're sort of like glasses wearing computer scientist type of kid, right? Who's into like I don't know art. No, that's not. You're not as good. You're not as much of a man as the high school quarterback, as the guy who's sort of like you're a man to the degree in which people will look at you and be like, oh, I want to be him, right? You're successful in some of the ways that the people would mark success. And so yeah, like I would say different what we're seeing.
There's a new one today. I call him the technocrat. You probably heard that term.
Yeah,
say it again.
The technocrat. So think aristocrat. The technocrat is the tech founder, the guy who starts a business, sells it. Now he's worth millions of dollars. So largely around like money, big business,
wealth.
Yeah, the nerdy guy who turns out can make software, and now software is really valuable. So as soon as he comes out of school, he's got a 6-figure salary. He starts a new company. He sells the company. Now he's got an 8-figure number in his bank account. And the example of the jock or the dude, I mean, it's almost like high school all over again. An example of that is like everybody wants the quarterback because he's big, he's strong, he's tall, he can throw, he can perform. It's just like, oh, that guy can protect me. Now you have like the Elon Musk. Yeah. What ball is he throwing? He plays video games,
but he's the richest.
But he's the richest guy in the world.
So it's still about like rich. It's still about like.
It still has money.
It's still about status and money.
Yeah, it's a different version of getting it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Got it.
Different version of getting it. And so
that makes sense.
I mean, if you look at all these, I mean,
Bill Gates.
I would argue all of them rotate around sort of aspects of power.
It's power,
of success, of status, and how you get it, right? And so whether you're getting. Back then whether you're getting it through like I can kill the biggest lion versus like I am the best athlete versus I've built the biggest company. So much of it is around the sense of how much status, how much power do you have, and the more you have, the more of a man you are, right? And I would say, and this is I think where we begin to sort of, as we're talking about this, we push back and say, I think the Bible pushes back. If like we were going to say that your sort of manhood is determined by how much money is your bank account, or how big your muscles are, or how many women you've slept with, or all those different things like that. We're sort of grading when it be manhood. I think the Bible would say there's something about being a man that's not tied to those things particularly, right? That those are sort of expressions that the world likes to look at and rank, et cetera. That at least for me, I sort of one of the ways, at least ways I think about it that we'll throw out here for you guys is. I mean, our sort of first example of manhood is at the very beginning, Genesis 1, Genesis 2. And I'm struck by, I think there's details there that are important about the creation of Adam and Eve. Where I toss around, I think, so one element of my working definition of what it means to be a man is a sense of almost like benevolent responsibility. And what I mean by that is when Adam is created, and then Eve is created after him, not as like, to be very clear, she's created equal to him. Idea of, I mean, quick Bible here, when Eve is created as a helper, that word helper doesn't mean she's subordinate. She's helping him accomplish what the two of them can't accomplish alone.
The mission,
right? But it is significant that I think Adam is created and given all these instructions. What the implication is, he's supposed to share it with Eve and make sure that she is able to equally participate in what they're doing. When Adam does not, when Eve is confronted by the serpent, the Bible says Adam was there and did nothing.
He was with her.
Well, it doesn't say that.
No, it says
it doesn't say he was there and did nothing.
Well,
it says that she ate of the fruit and then she gave to Adam who was with her. We don't know what that means. But I'm saying it's fair. I'm saying it's fair. And this is...
It's not recorded that he stopped her.
I agree. I'm saying...
I don't know. I think the implication is that Adam, for sure, whatever happened there, I would say Adam had a responsibility there that he didn't fulfill, right? Or at the very least, I mean, let's say I don't know if I agree with you on the Hebrew there, but I will say this. At the very least, when she gave it to him, the fact that he didn't say, no, we can't do this, says something, right?
The fact that he ate it also.
And we don't have any recording of God giving the instructions about the tree to Eve. Now,
that's true.
So what? Maybe it happened or not, but I think the Bible is very intentional about what it's doing there. There's a sense in which I'd say being a man has a sense of I have a sense of responsibility for what I've been given. We were talking about this earlier, but like some of it is tied to one of the things that is true is that biologically speaking, men are bigger, we're stronger. There's a reason why men have fought wars, have been able to. Even just look at sports. We see differences in what men are able to do versus women. So what do we do with that? Now, this is where the different versions of it have I think have been helpful. So some cases, there's some trends where like we won't. Some common trends were like almost deny that's the case. Let's just not admit it. Like it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. But like boys know it. We know
that men and women are built different.
They're built different, biologically different, right? Try to ignore it. I don't think that's a good version of it.
The
other version try to make too much of it. Well, because we're built different, that means then men are better. Men are more awesome, right?
More superior.
Or we should use it to dominate. Neither are right.
Right.
I think what the Bible is pointing to, and I think what Adam was supposed to do, and what Jesus reclaims for us, is a sense of like, here's what you've been given. How are you using it for the sake of those around you? To almost so the sense is I almost had the sense of I'm lifting up those around me who may be weaker, so that they're at the same status as me. And so this gets into then I think why men should initiate. Right?
Say what you said again.
I'm bringing the people up around me. So it's the women and children around me who, let's say, who are weaker in all sorts of different ways, right? Weaker because, let's say, of society, weaker because biologically they're weaker, they're more vulnerable, children are vulnerable. I think men have the unique ability to make sure there's a level playing field. Like to have that sense in which I am always making, I'm thinking women and children, but just in general, I think men's power is used best for the sake of justice, for the sake of the vulnerable, for the sake of those who might be most overlooked, that we use what God has given us, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Use what God has given us for the sake.
I agree.
And this isn't deny that women have this kind of qualities, et cetera, right?
Sure.
But to say there's something that I think it's compelling to say to our young kids, hey, like all this strength and power you have, use it to protect the people around you.
I
Use it to
agree.
provide for the people around you.
I agree with that. They're also, because you mentioned like the idea of biologically different men and women. There are some exceptions though, right? Because like when I think about Ronda Rousey, like I feel like
you're wrong.
I feel like she can take all three of us.
She can't.
Well, and I feel like she's probably stronger.
Well,
no, bro.
Well, let me. No.
No exceptions.
Hold on.
Ronda Rousey is.
Well, here's where I would say, I think it is a good example, but it's misplaced. Ronda Rousey could probably take us three, sure, but Ronda Rousey being the top at women's UFC couldn't take the top of men's UFC.
Well,
that's what you have.
She couldn't take the middle guy.
No. But no. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just still saying, like, even if you just put at the same like.
Yeah, but we're just talking about men and women.
But hers, but she's been trained. So you just say at her skill level and a man at the same skill level, that people would say that's not fair.
So Anderson Silva, and
even
Conor McGregor, or like
even the guy like I ran track in college, right?
I heard you was really good.
Here's the thing, I was good, but like I didn't make nationals, right? I was one of the best on the East Coast. Let's put it that way, right? And
time wise,
right?
Yeah.
Do you realize I would have been at least an alternate on the Olympics? On the Olympics for women, right?
Wow.
An alternate, maybe like, with a shot at making the women's Olympic team as just a above average, I was a Division I athlete, right? And so like I was good, but I wasn't like, I wouldn't say I was a top 50 in the country or whatever it is, right? That's just, that's just to put it
a different level.
It's a different level. I mean, you put a woman, the best women's basketball team, the WNBA team, against like a D2 men's basketball team. It's I think it's one of those. And again, this isn't to deny. I mean, I remember Serena Williams was talking recently about like comparing, like saying, hey, if you played an average guy, she's like, well, no, of course he'll be better. Like, I mean, it's not, we're not comparing. It's not worth it to Serena is one of the best ever.
Yeah.
Right. But for someone, you're right, like you're saying, who's sort of trained in any particular way, it's just it's an entire difference. We sometimes look at the exceptions. Of course, there's exceptions, but those exceptions don't make the rule, is what we often say.
Yeah, I want to be careful not to go too far. Not being an expert, like there are women in the WNBA who say, "Give me a D2 team, we'll take them," and there's a good chance they will. Right, D2 men's team, and again, like. I'm just saying, like, and I know NBA players. I know guys who have played overseas. I know they would go, nah, I would take her over these guys because the IQ is higher. And so the thing that I'm saying is, I think we have to like be careful about definitions. And so, I'm thinking women will hear this conversation and go, oftentimes women are associated with weakness.
Yeah,
so that's not. It's what happens in the conversation. Yeah. Right. And so that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, what I want to be careful of is like the way we define strength and weakness. Right. And oftentimes when we are talking about things that are masculine, there's like an automated like connection to strength, and we don't do the same thing with women. Yeah. Right. And so we often don't put women in the conversation that says, oh, well, women have to be the ones to lift up those who are weaker around her. And when you think about like matriarchal societies, or you think about civil rights and the role of women throughout all that history, you'd go, no, Big Mama was the one carrying the family, right? And you have those arguments, and people would say, well, what do you do in those situations? Yeah. Now, again, I'm not saying that's biology. I'm saying there is still a recognition that biologically men and women are built different. Yes, that is a recognition. But when we talk about what it means to be strong and what it means to be weak, that's where it's like, okay, that's fair. That conversation has been skewed often in the men's direction not equally sort of like
you're
given
right.
to
so
women.
Strength doesn't just belong to men. I mean, there's a amazing.
And it's not just physical.
It's not just physical. So yeah, that's where it can go wrong. If strength is just like, can you dunk, right? Then yeah, you can be like, men win all the time. But if strength is like, yeah, can you bear a child for 9 months and then nurture and care for it? I mean, that's a particular strength that belongs to women. But then we're seeing some differences here, right? In terms of, I think you
endure?
Yeah, can you now? Let's say your wife dies, then that man has to take care of that child. Then yeah, I mean, everyone has to do different things at different point. If the husband dies and the woman's got to protect the family, then she's got to do it, right? But all things, I'd say, being equal, there's a sense in which like God has given us strength. Maybe that's a better way to put it, in different ways. And I think I like the way you put it. I'll maybe readjust what I'm saying. Men or women are built differently, and that requires a different way of using the different abilities that they have. So you're right. That's a better way than I've been saying, which is to say, when I say men are stronger, I'm thinking biology, but that's more than different ways of talking about strength. Right. So that's a way of I think this is a helpful conversation. There's a way in which we're all sharing some of these same qualities, right? Whether it's strength, power, etc. But they are expressed differently. There's different nuances and accents to it, which lends itself in certain directions, right? And
that's what we don't get right about the conversation.
So then what's the difference then? Because somebody can hear this and say, if there's the same qualities of men and women, we got the same qualities, and a woman can do what a man can do. What's the difference?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying that's what I'm asking. If we have this, if they're saying that there's the same qualities, then what is the difference?
Well, yeah, I mean, so let's use that example of strength, right?
We'll call it biology or right. Physiology.
Yeah,
like physically, men are bigger. Yeah. They can generate more power. That's why Ramon is a D1 athlete who wasn't a top D1 athlete in the country. By the force generated by his body when his foot hits that floor and propels him down that track, the time that it takes him to get down there is equivalent or faster than most women who would qualify on the global stage. So this is not just top in the country. This is top in every country.
Yeah.
Because he's a man.
That's just
some people would disagree
that's
with that.
Just physiology.
Some people probably disagree with that.
That's fine, but you can't argue with the data.
You're disagreeing with science.
So
if I'm telling you I ran like a low 21 seconds and
200
meters, and a woman, the top Olympic women runners are running like high 21s, like what is there to disagree with about that? I wasn't taking steroids.
Right. On sentiment you can, but just the data, you just go, well, yeah, just look at the times. Yeah. Like where would you stack if you were to say like it's just a level playing field? Yeah. There isn't a men's division, there isn't a women's division. It's just we just race. Then you'd go, well, again, it's going to go, well, that's not fair. Why? Because of the anatomy, right? Like the length of the femurs,
Yeah.
you get into
So that's
like,
why they have women's track team and a men's track team.
that's why
I
they're
mean,
divisions
for everything.
Right, yeah.
And so, but yeah, you're right. That's not the only way to describe. We're talking about physiologically. I mean,
Right.
women's ability.
That's just one way to express.
Yeah.
But women's ability to bear children, to care for them, to nurture them.
Which men can't do.
Well, yeah, and that's an amazing type of strength to be able to do that.
Correct.
In terms of all the, and in the process of giving birth to that child.
But there are other things when you think about like, think endurance, right? So think of the idea of endurance. And I'm not talking about like just how fast can you run a marathon, right? That's the same kind of power generation. But like, think emotional strength. Like, how do you define strength when it comes to emotionality? Like the ability to sort of like govern your emotions, to endure hard things. Like those are the kinds of conversations that we don't have when it comes to strength. We always think, can you drive an axe through some wood? Right? Can you pick something heavy and move it from one location to the other? It's all physical strength. But can you stay calm under pressure? Like, can you endure hard things for a very, very, very long time? That's when things get a little bit more egalitarian. Should I use that word?
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah,
but that's when things become like
yeah.
a more even conversation around like, oh, men and women are.
Yeah.
Like now it's like there is no difference in that regard because it's not about physiology. It's not about anatomy. It's not about physical things. It's about like what's happening in the mind, what's happening emotionally. And those things there, we are built more similar.
Yeah. But saying that though, I mean, I do think the Bible is showing us sort of the different ways that can go bad and gives us a contrast with Jesus, right? And so I do think, I mean, given everything that we just said, I mean, it's interesting to note those beginning chapters of Genesis. What do we see men doing, right? So we see the example of Adam, Lamech, right? Who's, I want to see what Genesis, is it 4?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like he brags about the people he killed and the woman that he has, right? Even Cain and Abel in that story, right? Like what are we saying? We're seeing men, we're seeing the narrative of what we're talking about here, right? You have power and ability.
Type man.
But yeah, just however you look at it, I mean, I'd say so much of manhood is either you're sort of denying aspects of it and just sort of like being passive, or you're using it like Lamech to brag about the people you were able to dominate and the wives that you're able to have. And if you could just continue on through the biblical history, so many examples of men acquiring things for themselves, taking advantage of women, all these different things, right, and what they're doing. And then what does Jesus do and come along, right? He has power, he has strength, he's always using it for the sake of others. And so I do think there's a sense of there's a nuance here of like, I want to encourage our men to use what they have, to be one of the first to initiate, to use their whatever, however God has given them for the benefit of those around them, to provide, to care for, and again, this is not a sense of what like these hard sort of definitions. It can look different from man to man, but there is, and I think that's where like, yeah, we can go wrong. Like, okay, being a man must look 100% like this versus, men in some other countries have to be way more, what we call domestic, right? Or agricultural or oriented, where we might go, oh no, that's what women do. But it's just different culture. But that sense of like, I do want to press on men that like, obviously men and women have to provide for their family, but I want to say men should especially be thinking in those ways. How am I providing for my family?
I mean, that's why I do think the differences do stand out. I think what's happened in the conversation is that because, especially amongst those who call themselves Christians, would have let this nationalist viewpoint sort of like stay in their sort of like reading of the scriptures, to say that because whatever happened in Genesis 2 means like women can't lead companies or women can't make decisions or women can't vote. Like that's kind of that's the most asinine thing I've ever I go, how do you even get there? But you do have to be real about how did it get to the place where men have to go hunt or protect or whatever? Because when a woman is having a child or when she's on cycle or when when those things are happening, in some ways you are incapacitated. You cannot move as fast. You cannot walk the same way. There are things. If a woman's
carrying a child,
there are things happening in your body, in a woman's body, that do not happen in a man's body. And that's why I think that's why I think responsibility is such a key thing, because we have words for men who just like leave their family hanging, right? We know about bands, and we like, no, you don't get a pass for doing that kind of thing, right? A woman's with child or like bearing a child, what happens after the child is born and the time frame that it takes to even recover and and the body to.
Yeah, we would say that's not that's not being a man when you're like neglecting your
You
responsibility.
see what I'm saying? And the idea of that level of responsibility because someone is actually vulnerable. That doesn't mean women as a whole, but definitely in that 9-month, 12-month, sometimes 2-year period, it's just like there's a different thing happening in their body that does not happen into men. And again, even if you're not, like even in a situation like thinking like a village, when a woman in the village is bearing a child or with child, I go, she is just not as capable. Now, again, there are women who are pregnant and can do incredible things, but on average, it's like you are incapacitated in a lot of cases because you have to bear that child. And you just can't do things the same way because it puts the child at risk. Right? Yeah. That is a reality. And when you're in that state, then someone has to, like, that's the idea of saying, oh, we want to make sure that she is protected and covered. And in that sense, I go, yes, that is a reality of like what happens. Men do not go through cycles. Men do not have those type of things. Now, on the flip side, I do think there's a conversation around, men who have to, embrace like mental and emotional things where women do come along and provide more support in that regard where, anger gets out of control or, and again, like, especially in companies where men blow up and then the whole company falls down because people don't trust them anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of verses here, and I think they capture this. I mean, this is Colossians 3:19. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. So think about what the Bible is doing there, right? I think it's why does it say that to husbands as opposed to wives? Now, can wives be harsh with their husbands? Yes, but I think there's particularly destructive, more destruction that happens when husbands are harsh towards their wives and their families. What's the contrast to that? Love your wives, right? So yes, that same energy, that same power, use it in this direction to love your wives. 1 Peter 3:7. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, as the heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers not be hindered. Does it mean women are less than? I mean, I won't get into all the Greek of this. No, I'm not. No, I don't think that at all, right? But I think the sense of like, I'm sort of heavy more on this, that sense of live with your wives in an understanding way, show honor to them, because the contrast, and I think this is what we're pushing against. It's easy for men to use what they have to dishonor their wives, right? To not live with them in an understanding way. Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Why does it particularly target father? Can mothers provoke their kids to anger? For sure. But it's especially destructive when fathers do it. Yeah. Right. I think we've had experience of this. We know. I had a father, right? Who, when my mother yelled at me, that was one thing. But when my father yelled at me or threatened me, that was a much different effect, right? Yeah. And so, what do we do with that? I think the Bible says you do have that power and energy. Here's how to use it instead, right? Yeah. Use it for the benefit of your child. There's a difference, and it's a way of, in other words, it's saying it's not denying that's there, but saying here's how we direct it, and we direct it in these directions of caring, of responsibility. It's a way of affirming who you are as a man, and saying, but here's the place to put that space, put that energy. And when women are putting the energy they have uniquely as women, then something really great happens, right? We have the relationships that we should have.
I think there's a word that isn't typically used around the conversation of masculinity. I think responsibility is one big one, especially Adam being made first and God putting him in the garden and telling him to work the garden. Like that's a responsibility. God's giving him a task and saying, hey,
he had a job.
Yeah. I'm trusting you to do something, and Adam needed to do it. But I think what he was actually doing in the garden, the idea of cultivation, I think this is what you're getting at earlier in regards to like trying to bring people up. I think that's also the idea too of like, how do you bring out the best in people? And I was watching a clip, but there's a phrase called that people use in the business world that goes like, always be adding value, right? And I think in the term that this guy used, his name is Professor Galloway. He says, add surplus value, right? Give more than you take. I quoted Elon before, but Elon has said, make more than you take. In the content creating world, they say, create more than you consume. Like the idea of like, provide more than you, or, he was giving examples of like, do I hear more people complaining than I complain myself? Mm-hmm. Do I add things in the world more than I just take from it? Yeah. And I think there's a sense in which, when Adam was created and he was put in this garden, he was created to cultivate it. And then when given Eve as a helper, saying like, hey, no, this means that the thing that I created you to do, you can't accomplish by yourself, and you need someone to come along. Yeah. And neither one of you can accomplish it by yourselves. Like it's the two of you together that I'm saying be fruitful, multiply, subdue, and rule over all the things that I've made. But I think that idea of cultivation, such that Adam was the first one to hear those instructions, and then with those instructions, he's supposed to give that to everyone else to bring them up to like the standard or the or to become the people that God created us to actually be. And I think that's not a term often used around men, but I think should be more, such that it's a different kind of strength. Because the Bible's ripe with stories of men who lose their anger and kingdoms fall, cities fall,
cultivation
churches
rather than
fall.
destruction.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I think the opposite's helpful here, right? Like sort of rather than passiveness, there's responsibility. Rather than destruction, there's cultivation.
Exactly.
Another term I like to use is sort of the sense of humble strength, right? So rather than weakness, that men, we do have a strength, but it's used in humility, right? And care for others. Like
Is that what meekness is? I've always thought about that instead of weakness, meekness, but like it's almost like you take the W and just turn it around. But anyways, like what does it mean to be meek? So Jesus is standing before Pilate, and Pilate and he, I don't know how the exact story goes, but at a point, I don't know if it's after Pilate asked him, "Are you king of the Jews?" Or like, why aren't you trying to free yourself, or whatever? And Jesus is like, if I wanted to, I can call down legions of angels and just like, I could turn over this whole thing right now if I wanted to. But that's not that's not what the purpose of me being here is for. Like that's not what I'm trying to fulfill right now. So the understanding of like
there's a whole strength there.
Mission and purpose is, like what kind of strength was that for Jesus to know what he's capable of and not use it, not lose his cool, not lose his temper. Same thing when they came with the sticks and the bats and the swords and everything. At the moment Judas betrays him, like they were strapped, right? Peter pulls out a sword, cuts somebody's, like that's like somebody having a weapon and pulling it out and shooting somebody. And he's like, that's not what we're doing right now.
Yeah. I think
he lets them take him. Like that kind of strength.
I think that's a picture of like that, of healthy masculinity.
Sure.
The idea that I could, but I won't. I think that's actually
because of something better.
Because of something better.
Yeah. I'll use what I have for something better.
I could knock your head off, but I'm going to restrain and not do that because
there's a better path.
And so I think that's and you can do that in different examples, but that's when humble strength is, I think, really being, illustrated, is when you could do something, but you don't because there's something that's better.
Yeah, and I mean to use it, so we restrain in that case, but other cases we do use our strength. But when we do use it, we're using it to cultivate, right? We're using it to protect,
to build up, not
to build up, right?
Encourage,
all those things.
Yeah, that's good. Good. So we gotta watch out for toxic masculinity. Is that a word? That's not a word.
Not really.
Masculinity.
There you go.
We gotta watch out for toxic masculinity.
And also passive.
It's going and passive. A lovable doofus. I'm gonna quote that. I like that. It
captures it.
It captures exactly what you're actually. Talking about.
I will say this too. I think because toxic masculinity was a big term for a while, and I think there's been some pushback on that, and it maybe it's even informing
toxic empathy, toxic masculinity.
And so I think what people are trying to do now, is create this kind of masculinity and almost like reclaim this sort of dominance. That is toxic. That is like super unhealthy, cruel in a lot of ways. And the fact that, again, that it's staining men who call themselves Christians and saying that they follow, Jesus to behave or adopt or endorse some of these practices, or at least condone it, like to just be like, oh, well, we're just men of our times. Like, it's the ultimate cop out. I think we got to watch out for that. At the same time, I think we do need to call men like to what real masculinity looks like, and I think women play a big role in that. So, like, I think about Deborah, in Judges, and one of the things that was key that she did, even though Barak at the time, the appointed judge, the anointed judge, I don't think he responded to her well, so she had to take action for herself. And then like the hero was another woman who actually ended up killing the guy in the story. But she still called him out. She was like, aren't you the one who's supposed to be the judge? Aren't you the one chosen by God? And I think what isn't healthy in any situation is when men and women find themselves opposing one another as a community, like as just people in general, as the village. That whole idea of like, I will create enmity between, you and the seed, and like your desire will be for your husband, but he will rule over you. And now it's just created this dynamic of like, women are like, we don't need men. Men are like, we're going to dominate women. It's this entire toxic culture.
And that's what Satan wants.
Exactly. When what's supposed to happen is there is a recognition, one, of the strength that is real in both men and women, and then men and women calling that to each other, right? Without trying to say we are the same people, right? Like there are clear differences. Like there are just clear differences, but can we respect like how God has made both men and women, and then call women as men, when men are talking to women, call them as the women they are. Women, when they're talking to men, call men like to be the men that God has made them as, and then try to live like that. Because if we just sort of like throw the entire thing away because there's a few men up here who are really loud, and are trying to do it a specific way. No, there's a way that men should behave. There's a way that men should lead. If there's biology and physicality and some of those other things, there's like, hey, as a man, like, I need you to be more responsible. Right. And then men can find ways to speak to women that are far more gentle than we tend to want to be. Like, understand that women aren't the same as men, but then still say, hey, women, there's still things that we need. There's still ways that we need to live together so that, again, together we actually image what it means to be like God and then see things on earth as they are in heaven.
That's good. That's good. Well, fellas, I think that's a good landing spot for us today on this conversation about masculinity, authentic masculinity, healthy masculinity, and different versions that mess up and plague our society. But listen, we want to know what you think in the comments about masculinity. Do you have a masculinity story? Whether you experienced someone being toxic or whether it's healthy, you grew up with a father and it was great, whatever the case may be, we want to hear your masculinity story. Because we want you to add value. Like that, James? We want you to add value. We want you to cultivate
John, you funny.
with this conversation. So, like we always say, love God, love peace. Love God, love people.
You've been having trouble. This is like the third, fourth episode in a row. Do we need to put a teleprompter for you on this one? You're the guy to do that. Maybe I need to take this over. Yeah. Love God, love people.
Share, comment, all that. Love God, love people. We are out. Peace.